Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight, we're slipping into the side of history the bright pages never dared to hold. Beyond the kings, beyond the marble statues, beyond the heroes whose names echo through time, there lived others, unseen, unnamed, uncelebrated. Courtesans who walked beneath dim lanterns, slaves who breathed quietly in the shadows, outcasts who slept outside the city walls while the world pretended they never existed. Tonight, we're not chasing glory. Tonight, we're listening to the soft, fragile heartbeat of those forgotten lives. The ones who built the nights, the alleyways, the hidden corners of every ancient city, yet left almost no trace in the history books. And as the city falls asleep, their stories rise. So before you get comfortable, take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if these deep sleep history stories help you find peace, sleep better, or simply reflect on our shared journey through time. Now, close your eyes, let your breath grow soft, and follow me into the quiet world of the forgotten. Tonight, as the world outside your window grows quiet, I want to take you somewhere far beyond time, into a narrow stone street where the night holds stories that history never cared to write. The lamps burn low, their small flames trembling as if tired from a long day, casting soft, uneven circles of gold on the damp stones below. A faint breeze stirs loose dust, and the distant echo of laughter, drunken, fading, slides between the walls before dissolving into the dark. This place could be Rome or Athens or any ancient city where the day belonged to the powerful and the night belonged to those the world preferred not to see. And in this drifting hour, we follow the footsteps of a woman whose name was never recorded, whose existence lived only in the quiet corners of the night. She walks slowly, not because she is afraid, but because exhaustion clings to her like an extra layer of skin, heavy, familiar, and impossible to remove. Her sandals tap lightly on the uneven stones, soft, soft, soft. Then pause as if her body needs a breath before her heart does. She was not born into this life. No one is. Once she was a child with a real name, whispered lovingly by a mother whose face she tries not to remember too often. Memory can be cruel, especially when it contrasts too sharply with reality. Her family lived far from the stone streets she now walks, maybe on a dusty farm, maybe near a small fishing village where mornings smelled of the sea and evenings hummed with crickets hiding in tall grass. But life has a way of collapsing quietly, like a roof that gives way after too many storms. A father's debt, a failed harvest, a decision made by someone else who held the power to choose. And so she drifted, carried not by dreams, but by circumstances, until she found herself here, in a city that swallowed people like her whole, then pretended not to taste them. Under the dim glow of oil lamps, she learned quickly that the world judged loudly during the day and whispered differently at night. The same men who would never meet her eyes under the sun would stop her gently after sunset, their hands trembling, their voices softer than she expected. Some sought comfort, some sought distraction, some simply didn't want to face their own thoughts alone. She gave each of them what they needed, not because she wanted to, but because survival sometimes disguises itself as choice. Yet even then, she kept a part of herself tucked safely away, like a small ember hidden deep in the ashes. People saw the surface, the painted lips, the steady gaze, the quiet endurance, but they never saw the girl inside who still wondered what her life might have been if someone had simply chosen differently. On nights like this, when the streets grew still and no footsteps approached, she allowed herself to look up at the sky. The city was loud, but the stars were patient. They blinked slowly, like old friends, signaling from faraway places. She liked to imagine they remembered her, even if the world didn't. And as she stood there in the cool breath of the night, she understood something that history books often forget: that lives like hers shaped the city just as much as kings, generals, and philosophers. Without people like her, the invisible, the overlooked, the grand stories of civilization would be hollow. Tonight, she will keep walking, moving through light and shadow with the same quiet determination that carried her through every day before this one. And though the world may never carve her name into stone, this moment, her moment, still matters, because in the soft glow of an oil lamp, she is no longer a role or a label. She is simply human, and that is enough. As the night stretches deeper into its quiet hours, the woman continues her slow path along the winding street, tracing the familiar corners where the world blurred into something softer than judgment. The lamps flicker again, as if bowing to the long shadows leaning against the walls. This hour has always been hers, not because she chose it, but because it is the only time the city stops demanding something from her. She pauses near a doorway where the wood has grown smooth from centuries of palms, elbows, and tired bodies leaning against it. Above her, a small clay lantern hangs slightly crooked, swaying gently each time a breeze moves through. It gives off just enough light to reveal her face, not painted tonight, not arranged, simply itself. Lines of fatigue, eyes that have seen too much and too far, but also a steadiness, a quiet resolve born not from pride, but from survival repeated day after day, year after year. She remembers an evening long ago when someone once asked her what she dreamed of before life shaped her into its own design. The question startled her more than the man did, because dreams were something she had long buried beneath layers of necessity. She had answered honestly, "I used to want a normal life." But even she didn't know what normal meant anymore. Kitchens with warm hearths, a family, a husband who looked at her without calculation. She often wondered if dreams could fade like ink under sun, still there, faintly, but no longer readable. She moves again, passing a shuttered tavern whose scent of spilled wine clings to the ground like a memory that refuses to leave. She has stood outside these doors countless times, watching people inside laugh freely, unaware of her eyes resting briefly on their joy before she turns away. There were moments when the warmth inside tempted her to step closer, to imagine herself among those faces, but she always knew it was safer to stay outside the circle of light. People like her were meant to orbit life, not enter it. A soft meow breaks the silence. A stray cat, thin and curious, approaches her cautiously. She crouches and extends her hand. The cat sniffs her fingers, then presses its head gently against her knuckles. It is the only creature that touches her without expecting anything in return. She whispers something to it, words too soft for the night to carry. Then she rises again. The street narrows ahead, funneling her toward the older part of the city where stones have grown uneven from the weight of thousands of forgotten footsteps. Here, history feels closer, as if the past still lingers in each crack, whispering to anyone willing to listen. She often wonders how many women before her walked these same paths, wearing the same quiet exhaustion, carrying the same unspoken hopes. Did they also lift their eyes to the sky and ask the night if their story mattered? Did they ever imagine that centuries later, someone, even if only one person, might pause and think of them with gentleness? The truth is simple and painful. The city used women like her without ever acknowledging their existence. During the day, she felt invisible. During the night, she became necessary. But necessity is not respect, and survival is not belonging. As she crosses beneath an arch carved long before she was born, she trails her fingers along the cold stone. She finds comfort in its permanence. The wall will still be here long after she is gone, but in this brief moment, they share the same space, the same breath of night. Above her, a single star peeks from behind a drifting cloud. Not bright, not bold, just present. She lets her gaze rest on it. Somewhere, she believes, someone else might be looking at the same star, living a life she once wished for. And in that thought, there is neither bitterness nor envy, only a quiet acceptance that some lives bloom in daylight, while others, like hers, learn to glow softly in the dark. Tonight, as her footsteps echo toward a place she calls home only because she has nowhere else to go, the city remains unchanged, unaware of her passing. But you and I, we see her now, and for a few moments, she is no longer forgotten. The night grows older now, settling into the deep blue stillness that only appears when even the restless have surrendered to sleep. The woman steps into a quieter lane, where the stones are colder, the air gentler, and the world feels suspended, as if holding its breath. This is the hour she knows best, the hour where nothing moves unless she moves, where the silence is so complete it almost feels like a blanket draped over the city. She stops beside a small fountain, one that has stood here longer than any living soul. Its water trickles faintly, an unbroken whisper since ancient times. She leans down, cupping her hands to catch a little of the cool water. When she lifts it to her face, the sensation is grounding, almost cleansing, though she knows it cannot wash away the years. A lantern above her sputters, struggling to hold on to its flame. For a moment, she watches it fight the darkness, bobbing weakly before regaining its strength. She feels a strange kinship with that tiny flame, fragile, flickering, yet somehow still standing against the night. And then, without planning to, she sits at the fountain's edge. Her shoulders relax. The weight she always carries slips just slightly. She lets her thoughts drift, not to dreams, not to regrets, but simply to the feeling of being alive in a world that rarely pauses long enough to notice her. She wonders how many others in history lived lives like hers, half seen, half erased, their stories scattered in the dust between grand monuments and famous names. She imagines an ancient scribe somewhere, writing lists of kings and battles, unaware that the soul of the city lived in its forgotten people. The cooks, the cleaners, the travelers, the women who walked under oil lamps when the world turned away. For a moment, she closes her eyes. The air tastes of stone, of dew, of night falling gently over everything it touches. A memory rises, a time before all of this, when she once believed life followed rules. Goodness rewarded, hardship temporary, hope reliable. She smiles faintly, not out of sadness, but out of understanding. Life had taught her otherwise, yet somehow she kept going, step by quiet step. A soft rustle echoes from somewhere far down the street. A bird settling its wings, perhaps, or a shutter shifting in the wind. Nothing threatening, nothing sharp. The city is simply adjusting itself for sleep. She stands again, brushing dust from her clothes. Her steps turn toward the small place she calls home. A single room with cracked walls where the night breeze creeps in through the window, but where for a few hours she can let her guard fall. As she walks, she thinks about how many people pass by her in daylight without seeing her. To them, she is a shadow, a silhouette at the edge of their world. But shadows have stories too. They have memories. They have beating hearts that whisper to themselves when no one else will listen. And though history might never speak her name, the night does. It holds her gently, recognizing her endurance, her quiet strength, her unwillingness to disappear. By the time she reaches the doorway of her room, the sky has shifted toward a softer shade. Dawn is still far away, but its promise lingers faintly. She pauses, turning to look back down the empty street, her world, the place where she has walked thousands of nights and will walk thousands more. The lamps flicker behind her, casting long shadows that stretch like memories she cannot quite let go of. She inhales deeply, letting the stillness settle in her chest. And then, in a thought she never speaks aloud, she acknowledges something true. She mattered. Even if the world never recorded her story, even if no one remembers the sound of her footsteps, she existed, fully, bravely, quietly. And that existence, fragile,
overlooked, uncelebrated, is still a thread woven into the vast tapestry of the ancient world. Tonight, the city sleeps, but she remains awake, holding a place in history that was never written, yet is finally, softly seen.
Tonight, as the world outside drifts deeper into silence, let us descend slowly into a different corner of the ancient city, one most people never saw, yet depended on more than they ever admitted. The steps are uneven beneath our feet, worn by years of passage. The air grows cooler with every step downward, carrying with it the faint sting of damp stone. Somewhere in the darkness, a chain shifts, a soft metallic whisper. Not loud, not violent, simply present, like a reminder of the lives woven quietly into this place. A dim oil lamp hangs from a wooden beam, its flame thin and trembling. It illuminates a small cellar. Bare walls, low ceilings, and shadows that seem to stretch farther than the room itself. And there, sitting against the wall, is a man whose name history never bothered to learn. Tonight, he lets us listen, not to the shouts of daytime, not to commands or punishments, but to the quiet thoughts that fill the hours when the world above is asleep. His story begins not with heroism or defiance, but with something far simpler, a journey he never chose. He remembers the day it began, although he has tried for years to forget. One moment, he was a boy walking through fields near home, hearing the soft hum of insects and the rustle of wind in tall grass. The next moment, life changed abruptly, not in a dramatic storm, but in a series of steps taken by people who valued profit more than lives. He learned quickly that the world could rearrange itself without warning, and so he arrived here, in a city where his voice mattered less than the tools he carried. In the dimness of the cellar, he lifts his hand to adjust the iron band resting loosely on his ankle. It no longer hurts. His skin has gotten used to its weight. Sometimes he thinks the chain is less confining than the knowledge that he cannot choose where his feet go. His days are long, endless cycles of work, orders, and silence. But tonight, in the soft glow of the lamp, he speaks to himself in whispers, letting memories emerge one by one. He remembers his first months here, the confusion of unfamiliar words, the exhaustion of working before dawn, the sting of mistakes made simply because he could not yet understand. He recalls the voice of an overseer, not shouting, but sharp enough to shape fear. He learned quickly, not out of respect, but out of necessity. But not everything in his life is harsh. That is the part people often forget. Even in the dimmest corners of existence, small moments of gentleness survive like hidden embers. Sometimes, when the work is finished and the tools are set aside, he sits for just a moment longer than he should, letting his back relax against a cool stone wall. The feeling is simple but precious, the rare chance to feel his own breath without rushing. Once, a cook in the household pressed an extra piece of bread into his hand, pretending not to notice his surprise. Another time, a gardener,
old and half-blind, spoke to him as if he were simply another worker, not someone who lived beneath the house. These moments are small, but they stay with him more deeply than the pain. Pain fades, kindness echoes. Tonight, as he leans his head back, the faint scent of damp soil rises from the floor. He closes his eyes and imagines home, not the exact details which grow blurrier each year, but the feeling of sunlight on his face, the warmth of a familiar voice calling his name. He cannot remember the name clearly anymore, but the memory of being called, being recognized, still rests gently inside him. Outside, the city sleeps. Inside this cellar, he watches the lamp flicker, and for a quiet moment, the chains around him feel less like bindings and more like the background hum of a life he continues to endure. He is not angry, he is not defeated, he is simply here. And in this stillness, for the first time all day, he belongs to himself. As the lamp burns lower, the man lets his gaze drift toward the ceiling beams, tracing the thin cracks in the wood as if they were lines of a map leading back to the life he once knew. The cellar is quiet except for the gentle tap of a chain shifting whenever he adjusts his leg, and the faint dripping of water somewhere beyond the walls. These small sounds have become familiar companions, ordinary, steady, almost comforting in their predictability. He exhales slowly, allowing his shoulders to settle. Night is the only time he feels the weight inside his chest soften, even if only slightly. The world above may never notice when he pauses, but here in the dim glow, he gives himself permission to exist without urgency. He remembers a time long before this cellar, when nights were not something to fear or endure, but simply a quiet chapter between days. In his childhood home, he would sit outside with his family, watching fireflies glow among the grass. He can still picture the flicker of their tiny bodies, brief sparks floating gently in the warm air. Sometimes he wonders if any fireflies live here in this vast city, but he has never seen one. This place is too crowded, too full of smoke and stone. Yet in his mind they still glow, tiny lanterns guiding him through memories that refuse to fade completely. Work has a way of erasing details from a man's life. Faces blur, names slip away, seasons pass without celebration. But feelings, those linger. The feeling of waking before dawn, when the streets are still dark and the cold bites his hands. The feeling of carrying heavy loads until his arms tremble. The feeling of bending to tasks that seem endless, one blending into the next until the day is gone without him realizing it ever began. But there are other feelings too, gentler ones. He recalls the rare evenings when a breeze found its way into the courtyard, cooling the sweat on his neck. or when he was allowed a cup of warm broth on winter nights. He remembers once overhearing two workers speak kindly of him, saying he worked harder than anyone they knew. They did not realize he could hear them. He never forgot their words. In a world where praise is scarce, the smallest kindness becomes a treasure, stored carefully in the deepest part of the mind. Tonight, he closes his eyes and lets those memories rise, not to cling to them, but to remind himself that he is more than the labor he performs. His life did not begin in hardship, and it does not end in this room. It stretches in both directions, like a thread connecting who he was and who he might still become if the world ever gives him a chance. The chain at his ankle shifts again. He touches it lightly, not with resentment, but with acceptance. It is simply part of his life now, like the calluses on his hands or the quiet strength in his back. He hears footsteps above, faint, distant, someone preparing for bed. He imagines the soft rustle of blankets, the glow of a warmer room. He does not envy them. He only wonders what it must feel like to lie down without worry, to rest without waiting for commands or responsibilities to return. His own moments of rest are brief, but deeply cherished. Sometimes on nights when the moon is bright enough to shine through the cracks in the floorboards above, he watches the thin slivers of light dance across the wall. The light is cool and silent, untouched by the noise of the world. In those moments, the cellar feels less like a prison and more like a refuge, a place where he can breathe slowly, think softly, and be human in a way he cannot during the day. He lifts his hand and lets the pale moonlight touch his fingers. It is a small, fragile gesture, but it reminds him he is still alive, still capable of noticing beauty even in the shadows. And that, he thinks, is a kind of freedom no chain can take away.
The night deepens in the cellar, settling softly over the stones as though even time itself wishes to rest. The man shifts slightly, pulling his thin blanket closer around his shoulders. It is worn and patched in places, but it is his, one of the few objects in this room that offers a sense of comfort rather than duty. He holds it the way someone might hold a memory, not tightly, but with quiet gratitude. Above him, the faint glow of moonlight slips through a crack in the wooden planks, stretching across the floor like a silver thread. He watches it slowly inch its way toward him, the beam moving gently as the night sky turns. It is a small thing, nothing extraordinary, yet it captures his attention more deeply than the passing days ever do. In that light, he finds a kind of company. He inhales, letting the cool air fill his lungs. For a moment, the cellar no longer feels like the underside of a bustling world. It feels like a cocoon, a stillness carved out just for him. His hands rest on his knees, rough from work but steady. These hands have carried water, built walls, harvested fields, scrubbed floors, lifted burdens far heavier than anyone realizes. Yet they have also held small blessings, a cup of warm broth, a folded scrap of cloth from an older worker who thought he looked cold, a wooden bead carved by another slave who simply wanted to give him something to keep. That bead sits tucked inside a crack between two stones, hidden but safe. Some nights, like this one, he quietly reaches for it. His fingers brush against the cool surface of the tiny bead, and he holds it gently, as if afraid it might disappear. It is not valuable in any worldly sense, but it reminds him that kindness exists even where freedom doesn't. It reminds him that people who have very little still find ways to give. He closes his eyes. The smell of damp earth surrounds him, grounding him in this strange life he never asked for. Yet in the quiet, he feels something that surprises even him: peace. Not because the world is fair or because his life is easy, but because in this slow hour he can finally feel his own presence. His thoughts wander back to home, not to grief or longing, but to warmth. He remembers the crackle of a small fire, the soft murmur of relatives speaking nearby, the rhythm of a life lived without fear of commands. Those images rise like gentle waves, not trying to drag him back, only reminding him of where he began. And then he remembers something much smaller, yet somehow sharper, the feeling of grass beneath his feet. Not stone, not dust, grass, cool, slightly damp, bending softly under his steps. He imagines that feeling now, letting it wash through him, letting it soothe the parts of him that work has worn thin. A sudden breeze slips through the cracks, brushing against his cheek. He lifts his head slightly, surprised by the coolness. It carries with it a faint scent, herbs from the kitchen above, perhaps, or a hint of night air from an open window. Whatever it is, it makes the cellar feel less closed, less forgotten. He breathes it in slowly. Above him, the city sleeps. Wealthy houses tucked behind tall walls, markets emptied of noise, temples standing silent beneath the stars. Down here, the lamp flickers softly, and his world is made of shadows and echoes. But for the first time tonight, he smiles. It is a small smile, barely there, but it lights his face more warmly than the lamp ever could. Because he realizes that despite everything, these small joys are his. No one can order them away. No one can take them from him. As the lamp fades to a weaker glow, he lies down on his thin mat and lets his eyes grow heavy. The chain at his ankle rests quietly, still, almost gentle. And just before sleep finds him, a single thought settles in his heart, a truth he rarely allows himself to acknowledge, that even a man the world calls insignificant carries within him entire galaxies of memory, feeling, and resilience. He is unseen, he is overlooked, but he is human. And tonight, beneath the quiet ceiling of an ancient cellar, that is enough. Tonight, we step beyond the city walls, far past the glow of lanterns, past the murmur of marketplaces long closed,
past the safety and familiarity of streets that never truly sleep. Out here, the wind moves differently. It carries less noise and more memory, brushing over patches of dry grass and shifting sand that have witnessed years of quiet suffering. A small camp sits at the base of a hill, so distant from the city that its fires look like fading stars scattered across the ground. A single flame flickers near one of the tents, nothing more than a bundle of cloth patched over and over, barely holding out the cold. And beside that fragile light sits a man wrapped in a worn blanket. His hands tremble slightly as he adjusts it, not from fear, but from the long weariness that has settled into his bones. The bandages around his arms are clean but old, replaced only when the camp's healer can spare extra cloth. This is a place for those the ancient world did not understand. People whispered about, feared, avoided, not because of who they were, but because of stories others invented about them. The man knows those stories well. Cursed, some had said. Unclean, others whispered as they hurried by. But he has learned, in the quiet of his nights here, that people fear what they do not try to understand. He lifts his gaze toward the city walls, faint silhouettes far in the distance. He used to live inside those walls. He used to wake before dawn to open his small workshop, smell the heat of the hearth, listen to the familiar knock of a neighbor asking for help repairing a tool. He was once part of the rhythm of the city, welcomed, spoken to, counted among its people. And he remembers the exact moment when everything shifted. The day he noticed a mark on his skin. Not frightening, not painful, merely different. He thought little of it then. But people notice things. And once they noticed, whispers spread faster than truth ever could. He was sent away before he understood what was happening. Not violently, not loudly, just decisively. A neighbor leaving a basket of food at his door but refusing to knock. A friend telling him he should rest outside the city for a while. A final look from someone he trusted, filled not with anger, but with fear. Fear is a powerful force. Fear builds walls taller than stone. Now, in the cool breath of night, he sits beside the small fire and lets its warmth touch his face. The flame dances weakly, but he watches it as if it is the last piece of life that still connects him to the world he once knew. His thoughts drift, not toward bitterness, but toward memories he does not want to lose. He remembers a morning long ago when his daughter, just a toddler then, ran toward him with tiny steps, laughing as she tried to wrap her arms around his leg. He remembers the softness of her voice when she said her first words. He remembers the way she smelled of sun and wild grass after playing outside. These memories arrive gently, like ripples on still water, but beneath them lies a quieter ache. He misses them. He misses his family with a tenderness so deep it no longer burns. It simply rests inside him like a stone smoothed by years of touch. He wants to see them again, but he will not go back. Not because he isn't welcome, but because he refuses to bring fear into their home. Love, he has learned, sometimes means staying away. The night stretches long ahead of him, but he is not afraid of it. The camp is silent except for the soft crackle of distant fires and the occasional cough from another tent. Here, everyone understands everyone. No one judges. No one recoils. They share the same exile, the same quiet resilience. He pulls the blanket closer and closes his eyes. The wind brushes his hair like a memory he cannot quite hold. Somewhere beyond the walls, the city sleeps unaware of him. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, he feels seen, not by the world, but by this moment, by the night sky, by the flame that refuses to go out.
The night grows deeper around the camp, wrapping the scattered tents in a stillness so complete that even the wind hesitates before passing through. The man shifts closer to the fire, feeding it a small twig he saved from earlier that day. The flame rises for a moment, warming his face before settling into a soft glow once more. This little fire has become his companion, the only light he trusts, the only warmth he allows himself to hold without fear of taking it from someone else. He stares into it, watching the way the embers breathe, expanding and fading like a slow heartbeat. Above him, the sky stretches endlessly, far clearer here than inside the city's crowded walls. Stars scatter across the darkness in quiet constellations, shimmering with a calm he cannot find anywhere else. He has come to think of the night sky as company, distant, yes, but unfailing. The city may have turned away from him, but the stars never have. A faint sound stirs him, something soft, like the rustle of a blanket or the shift of someone lying down in a nearby tent. He recognizes the rhythm of that sound. It belongs to an older man who arrived at the camp many months ago, frightened and alone. Over time, fear became familiarity, and familiarity softened into a wordless understanding shared by everyone here. In this place, no one asks why others ended up beyond the walls. They already know. And so, without speaking, they form a quiet community built not from choice, but from shared exile. The man pulls his blanket tighter and allows a memory to surface, one he hasn't touched in years. He remembers the scent of warm bread drifting from his home at dawn, the playful laughter of children running along dusty streets, and the comforting hum of neighbors exchanging greetings as they opened their shops. He remembers belonging. He remembers being recognized, not as a threat, not as a symbol of something feared, but simply as himself. That was long before people began avoiding him, before they crossed the street to keep distance, before he learned that silence could feel sharper than any spoken word. He looks at his hands, faintly lit by the fire. They are different now, thinner, rougher, more fragile, but they are still his hands. They once crafted tools, carved small wooden figures for his daughter, mended baskets for neighbors who paid him not with coins, but with smiles and gratitude. His hands have always known how to build. Now, they build nothing except small moments of stillness. And yet, he finds that these moments matter more than he expected. The fire crackles softly, its warmth ebbing and flowing. A quiet cough
echoes from another tent, then fades again into the hush of the night. There is no fear here, no recoiling, no whispers of judgment, only breath, wind, earth, and fire. And in this simple constellation of elements, he feels more human than he ever did inside the city. He lifts his eyes again to the sky. One star shines brighter than the others, steady, unwavering. He focuses on that star, letting himself imagine that someone he once knew might be looking at that same star at this very moment. The thought does not sadden him, it soothes him. It bridges the space between the life he lost and the life he now lives without blaming either one. He remembers his daughter again. She is older now, surely. He wonders whether she still runs with the same bright determination she had as a toddler. He wonders whether she remembers his face, his voice, his hands. He hopes she does, but he does not cling to the hope. Love, he has learned, does not demand certainty. It simply continues, even when distance stretches endless between two people. A breeze sweeps through the camp, lifting the edge of his blanket. He holds it down gently. The air smells faintly of wood smoke and dry grass. Simple scents, honest scents. They remind him that life continues even when the world narrows. They remind him that he has endured another day. And now, as the fire softens into a gentle ember glow, he lets his body relax against the earth. The ground beneath him is cold but stable, solid, real. And though he is separated from his old life by walls both literal and invisible, he understands something he did not see before, that even in exile, even in forgotten places, people are still people, capable of remembering, capable of hoping, capable of feeling the warmth of a flame and calling it home. The night breathes around him, and he breathes with it. In the quiet, he finds himself whole again, not repaired, not restored, but still whole in the ways that matter.
The night softens as its deepest hours approach, settling over the camp like a blanket stitched from silence. The fire beside the man has quieted to a faint blush of embers, glowing gently as though reluctant to disappear. He draws his blanket closer, not out of cold, but out of instinct. An instinct to hold on to something, anything that feels warm, steady, and certain. Around him, the camp sleeps. A few figures shift in their tents, their breaths rising and falling with the rhythm of exhaustion. No one speaks, no one dreams loudly. Nights here are not for stories or songs, they are for endurance, for letting the weight of the day melt slowly into the earth. The man looks toward the distant city walls once more. A thin veil of mist has gathered there, blurring their edges, making the city appear like a half-forgotten dream. He imagines what the streets look like at this hour. The shuttered shops, the cats wandering alleys, the soft hum of someone stoking an early fire. Life continues there in patterns he once understood so well. But he is no longer a thread in that fabric. And strangely, the thought does not wound him the way it once did. Isolation has a way of rearranging the heart, of teaching it where to lean and where to let go. He closes his eyes, and another memory rises. Not of his daughter, this time, nor of his workshop or neighbors,
but of himself as a young man. Strong, hopeful, convinced that his life would follow a path as predictable as sunrise. He remembers the simple joy of carving wood by lamplight, shaping something from nothing with hands that believed they had time. He remembers offering the finished pieces to friends and family, not for payment, but for connection. And he remembers how easily he once believed that belonging was permanent. When he opens his eyes, he is surprised to feel neither sorrow nor longing, only acceptance. Acceptance, he realizes, is not a surrender. It is a quiet acknowledgement that the road ahead may never return to the road behind, but that the person walking it is still the same, still capable of warmth, memory, dignity, and depth. A rustle catches his attention. From the tent nearest his own, a gentle figure emerges, a woman wrapped in layers of worn cloth, her steps slow but steady. She does not approach him fully, she only nods in his direction before tending to her own small fire. He nods back. No words pass between them. They are unnecessary. Here, silence is its own language, one that says, "I see you. You are not alone." He watches as she carefully shields the fire with her hands to coax it to life. For a moment, her face is illuminated, revealing calm eyes and a faint curve of resilience at the corner of her lips. She has endured much, he can tell, but she carries it without bitterness. Seeing her, he feels something loosen in his chest, a reminder that even in forgotten places, humans remain mirrors for one another. He leans back slightly, allowing his body to sink into the firm earth. The sky above him begins to lighten just a shade, not exactly dawn, but a whisper of it. Like a promise the world is still considering whether to keep. He knows he will not return to the city. He knows the life he had is now a memory carried, not a home waiting. Yet, with the shifting sky and the slow warmth rising in the air, he realizes something gentle and new. The dawn does not require permission to touch those outside the walls. Light does not ask where someone belongs before it arrives. It simply appears. The first pale glow brushes the tops of the tents. Birds stir somewhere in the darkness. The woman tending her fire steps back to watch the sky. The man closes his eyes once more, not to sleep, but to hold the moment as it passes through him, soft as breath. And for the first time in a long time, he lets himself believe that even here, far from the city, far from the life he knew, he still belongs somewhere. Not to a place, not to a community that shunned him, but to the quiet truth that every life, even a life pushed beyond the walls, contains a spark that refuses to go out. When the sun finally lifts its edge above the horizon, he opens his eyes to greet it. The light touches him gently, without hesitation, without judgment. And in that simple warmth, he finds his morning, one he did not expect, but one he accepts as his own.
So the night begins quietly at the edge of the ancient marketplace, where the last lanterns tremble in the wind like tired eyes refusing sleep. At the top of a stone stairway leading toward a temple courtyard, a small figure sits alone, knees tucked to chest, arms wrapped tightly around thin shoulders, trying to borrow warmth from a world that has offered none. The child does not know how long they have been there. Time feels different when you are small and frightened. Minutes stretch into hours, and every sound becomes a question. A basket rests beside them, empty except for a scrap of cloth that once served as a blanket. Someone placed them here, gently perhaps, or hurriedly, or with tears, but the child is too young to understand the reasons. All they know now is the cold stone beneath them, and the distant hum of a city moving on without noticing. A soft breeze carries the smell of roasted grain and fading incense from the temple above. The scents are familiar, comforting, but they belong to a life the child no longer has. Below the stairs, the marketplace is quieting. Merchants whisper final prices. Shutters slide into place, and footsteps fade into narrow alleys. No one climbs the stairs. No one sees the child sitting so still they almost look carved from the stone itself. The first memory begins here, not a memory of birth, nor of the hands that carried them before this moment, but of the night itself. The child remembers the ache in their empty stomach, a slow, twisting hunger that feels like the echo of a forgotten lullaby. They remember the way their breath trembled each time they exhaled, leaving small clouds that quickly disappeared into the darkness. They remember the silence, a silence so wide it felt like an entire world staring back at them. After a long while, footsteps approach. A woman in simple robes pauses at the bottom stair, holding a small clay lamp. She lifts the flame slightly, as if hoping to read the night more clearly. Her eyes fall upon the child, not with shock, not with pity, but with a quiet familiarity, as though she has seen this story many times before. She does not speak. She simply extends her hand. The child hesitates, then rises slowly, clutching the scrap of cloth. The woman's hand is warm, steady, and without urgency. She guides the child through the temple gates, along a corridor lit with small lamps, and into a room where other children rest on mats arranged neatly along the walls. Some are awake, their eyes reflecting the lamplight. Some whisper to one another in soft voices. Others pretend to sleep, but listen carefully, as children often do. The caretaker covers them with a thin blanket. The fabric is rough, but to the child it feels like the first safe thing they have touched all night. Slowly their breathing steadies. Slowly their eyes grow heavy. And as sleep finally comes, the child carries with them a truth they will understand only later. That while some children are born into households where boundaries are written in lineage and lineage in stone, others begin their lives in the quiet corners of temples and markets, children whose names are not recorded in scrolls or genealogies, but who learn to carve their names into memory one night at a time.
The night in the orphan house stretches long, but it is softer than the cold stone steps where the child was found. As the small flame in the clay lamp flickers, the room fills with shadows that sway gently across the walls, moving like quiet guardians watching over the sleeping children. The child lies awake on their straw mat, listening to the fragile music of the night, the rustle of blankets, the shifting breaths of others, the faint clatter of a wooden cup
rolling somewhere in the hallway. Everything is unfamiliar, yet strangely comforting. This is the first roof the child has slept under since being left on the temple stairway. They clutch the scrap of cloth that came with the basket, rubbing the fibers between their fingers, feeling the last anchor to whatever life existed before tonight. A soft whisper comes from the mat beside them. "Are you scared?" The voice belongs to another child, a slightly older one, whose eyes glimmer with the warm confidence of someone who has already lived many nights in this room. The first child does not answer at first. Silence has been their shield all evening, a way to hold the world at a distance. But the older child whispers again. Everyone is scared the first night. There is no pity in the voice, only experience, only truth. The younger child swallows, the sound tiny in the quiet room. "Will someone come back for me?" The older child hesitates. This question is familiar. It has echoed through these walls many times before. Finally, they say softly, "Maybe, or maybe you'll find someone new here." The thought is both comforting and frightening. The younger child turns onto their side, facing the older one. "Did someone leave you too?" A small nod in the dim light. "I don't remember who, just the wind that night and the sound of my stomach." The younger child's breath trembles, relief mixed with sorrow. It feels easier to breathe knowing someone else understands. Their conversation fades into silence, but a connection has formed, delicate, almost invisible, yet powerful enough to hold two small hearts steady against the darkness. After a while, footsteps approach the doorway. The caretaker walks in carrying a pot of warm broth. She moves slowly, placing small wooden bowls beside the children who are still awake. When she reaches the new child, she pauses for a moment. Her hand rests lightly on their hair, barely a touch, just enough to say, "You are safe here." The broth is simple, thin, warm, faintly salty. But for the child, it feels like the first kindness in a very long time. They hold the bowl with both hands, savoring the warmth as it spreads through their body, easing the knots in their stomach. The children around them sit quietly, grateful for something warm before sleep. No one asks for more. They have learned early that comfort here comes in small pieces, but that each piece is real. When the caretaker leaves, the children settle again. The older child whispers, "Tomorrow is market day. Sometimes the priest lets us stand near the gate to watch the crowds." "Why?" the younger one asks. "So we don't forget the world outside." The younger child thinks about that, the idea of a world that continues moving, even when you are no longer part of anyone's home. Their eyelids grow heavier. The warmth of the broth, the whisper of other children breathing, the safety of four walls, all of it gathers around them like a soft nest. Their stomach still aches a little, but less now. The fear is still there, but it loosens its grip. And before sleep claims them, the child senses a small shift inside, a quiet acceptance that tonight is only the first of many nights, and that somehow, in this place of forgotten children, they may learn not just to survive, but to belong.
The hours drift gently toward dawn, and inside the orphan house, the night becomes softer, quieter, as though it has settled itself beside the sleeping children to keep watch a little longer. The young child lies awake, not out of fear now, but out of a strange stillness they have never felt before. The warmth from the broth lingers in their chest, and the whisper shared earlier wraps around them like a second blanket. The older child beside them has already fallen asleep. Their breathing is steady, slow, a small rhythm that feels like a lullaby. For the first time since being left on the temple steps, the younger child does not feel entirely alone. They look up at the ceiling, wooden beams darkened by years of oil lamps and smoke. Shadows sway gently with the night breeze coming through the small window above. Each movement is soft, like a hand brushing back their hair. A quiet comfort settles in. In this room, no one asks who they used to belong to. No one demands a name with a history attached to it. Here, a child can simply exist. After a while, the door slides open again. A different caretaker enters, a man this time, older, with a kind slowness in his movements. He checks the lamps, adjusts a fallen blanket, and pauses when he sees the newest child still awake. He kneels beside them, no words, just a warm presence. Then he offers a small wooden toy, carved from a single piece of scrap wood into the shape of a bird. Its wings are uneven, its beak slightly crooked, but to the child it is perfect. The man places the toy in their hands before rising and walking away with the same calm, quiet steps. The child holds the wooden bird tightly, tracing its rough edges with growing fascination. It is not a memory from their past, but it becomes the first memory of their new life. A moment later, a soft sound ripples through the room, the kind of whisper children make when dreams shift into half-wakefulness. Someone mumbles, someone sighs, someone curls tighter into their blanket. These small sounds weave a kind of fragile harmony, reminding the child that though every heart here carries its own story of being left behind, none of them face the night alone anymore. The sky outside the window begins to change. Not a full sunrise yet, but a pale light brushing lightly against the darkness. The child watches it with wide eyes. Dawn looks different when you're not shivering on cold stone. It feels closer, kinder. As the light grows, the child thinks of the temple stairway again. The coldness, the emptiness, the wind tugging at their clothes. But the memory no longer feels sharp. It feels distant, like something happening to someone else. The wooden bird rests against their chest. They think, maybe this is what it means to begin again. Footsteps stir as more children wake. Someone yawns loudly. Someone laughs quietly through their nose. The older child beside them rubs their eyes and looks over. "Still awake?" they whisper. The younger child nods. "Did you sleep?" The older child shrugs with a sleepy smile. "A little. You will too. After a few nights, it's not so scary anymore." The younger child looks around the room, at the mats, the blankets, the children stretching with sleep still clinging to their eyes, and something inside them settles. The fear hasn't vanished, but it has softened. The emptiness is no longer a void, it's a space where new things can grow. The caretaker begins to ring a small bell, gentle and slow, calling the children to wash their faces and prepare for the morning offerings at the temple. One by one, the children rise. The younger child stands too, still holding the wooden bird. And then comes a thought, quiet but clear. This is the first morning of my new life. They do not know what the future holds, whether they will one day serve in a household, work in a shop, or find a new family among the people who care for this place. But the morning light landing softly on their cheeks tells them something truer than any prophecy, that even children left without a name carry a future that has not yet been written. And as the sun finally crests the rooftops, warming the orphan house from corner to corner, the child steps into the day with a small but certain truth in their heart. While royal children may be recorded in scrolls and carved in stone, children like them carry their names in memory, where no hand can erase them.
The night settles quietly over the old fortress, its stones holding on to the lingering chill of a world that has already decided what tomorrow will bring. Deep within its corridors lies a small cell, narrow, bare, touched only by the soft silver of moonlight slipping through iron bars. In that pale light sits a lone figure, back resting against the cold wall, hands folded loosely in their lap, as if they have finally stopped fighting the heaviness of the moment. They are tired, not of life, but of the confusion surrounding it. No one grows up believing they will one day be called a heretic, and yet here they are, wrapped in silence, tracing the story of their life through fading thoughts. The moonlight feels gentle tonight, softer than it has ever been. It spills across the floor like a fragile path to a world they cannot reach. The figure watches it, breathing slowly, letting the stillness cradle them. The cell is cold, but not unkind. Sometimes cold is simply cold, not a sentence. They think back to the beginning, not the beginning of their life, but the beginning of trouble. A book, that was all. A book someone said was forbidden, though they had never understood why words on a page could frighten grown men. It was curiosity that opened it, not rebellion. Curiosity and a desire to understand. They had always been that way, asking questions others preferred to leave unanswered, pausing in places where others rushed past, wondering why the moon sometimes looked sad, and why the world so often demanded silence from those who simply wished to know more. The book had been old, its edges soft from many hands. Inside, it spoke of ideas, not dangerous ideas, just different ones. Ways of healing that used herbs the officials did not recognize. Ways of thinking that suggested truth could be larger than any single person's version of it. They read in secret, not because they meant harm, but because the quiet made the words feel sacred. And then someone saw. Someone whispered, and whispers, once they begin, grow roots quickly. They do not blame the people who judged them. Fear moves faster than understanding. They only wish there had been time to explain, to say they were not trying to change the world, only to understand it a little better. But explanations rarely travel as fast as accusations. Now, in this dim room, the figure leans their head back against the stones, feeling the roughness like an anchor pulling them into the present. They are not angry, not even frightened, though tomorrow is uncertain. They simply feel separate. Separate from the world that raised them. Separate from the laws that shaped them. Separate from the expectations they never managed to fit into. The silence feels almost compassionate. No judgments, no hurried voices, just the night breathing softly through the bars. They close their eyes and inhale. They think of the people they helped, the sick child whose fever eased after a simple herb tea, the old man whose pains softened after a salve they learned to make from those forbidden pages. None of those acts were wrong. None of them hurt anyone. But sometimes the world fears healing it cannot explain. They wonder if they were foolish, not wrong, just foolish. Foolish to believe that curiosity was harmless. Foolish to imagine that the world would welcome a mind that steps slightly outside its lines. The moon climbs higher. Shadows shift across the walls, moving like slow, thoughtful dancers. The figure watches them with quiet fascination. Even here, in a place meant to break the spirit, beauty finds a way to exist. They lift their hand, letting the moonlight touch it. The light makes their skin look softer, almost translucent, as though they are drifting gently between this world and another. They whisper to themselves, not a prayer, not a plea, but a simple acknowledgement. I don't know if I'm right. I only know I couldn't pretend not to wonder. The honesty feels like a warm blanket. It settles around them, calming their breath. Outside, someone walks past, a guard perhaps, but the footsteps fade quickly. No one stops, no one speaks. It is a night built of pauses, a night that asks nothing except to be lived quietly. And as the hours stretch on, the figure sits in peaceful stillness, thinking not of flames, not of judgment, but of the simple truth that has always guided them, that sometimes the greatest difference between a heretic and a thinker is the timing of their questions.
The night continues its slow drift, wrapping the cell in deeper shades of silver and shadow. The figure shifts slightly, the rough stone pressing against their back, grounding them more than restraining them. In the quiet, they can almost hear their own heartbeat, steady, unhurried, accepting. They think about the word they have been given, heretic, such a heavy word for such a simple person. They wonder how a single label can change the way the world sees someone, and even more strangely, how it tries to change the way a person sees themselves. They tilt their head, watching a thin beam of moonlight stretch across the floor like a ribbon of calm. Questions float through their mind, questions they've asked all their life. Why must knowledge have walls? Why must curiosity be weighed like a crime? Why does a thought become dangerous only when spoken aloud? They've never understood why the world fears people who look a little deeper. Perhaps because looking deeper means seeing things others would rather ignore. They remember the elders of their village, people who taught them to respect silence, not because silence was superior, but because silence allowed thoughts to grow without interruption. Those same elders would be shocked to hear the word heretic used for someone who simply followed their teachings too well. The figure allows themselves a small smile. The irony is gentle, almost comforting. They think of the first time they were scolded for asking too many questions. They couldn't have been more than 8 years old. They had asked why the stars return to the same places each year, why the moon sometimes disappears, why stories contradict each other if they all claim to be true. The adults had sighed, told them not to trouble themselves with such things. But how could they stop? The world had always felt like a puzzle waiting patiently to be understood. They wonder now if they should have learned to pretend. Pretending might have saved them from all this. Pretending might have given them a quieter life. But pretending is something they were never built for. Their mind has always wandered down unguarded paths. It has always wanted to know the why behind the what. They lift their hand again, letting the moonlight trace the lines of their fingers. In that soft glow, they feel strangely whole, as though nothing has been taken from them. Not freedom, not hope, not the ability to think. These cannot be stolen, not even by fear. A faint sound drifts through the window, wind brushing past the stone walls, carrying with it the distant hush of sleeping fields. The world outside is enormous, peaceful, unaware of the human life inside this small room. They close their eyes and let their mind wander to the landscapes they used to walk. The gentle hills behind their village, the stream where they used to gather herbs, the quiet grove where birds nested in the same tree every spring. Every memory feels like a warm lantern. They hold on to it. They think of the people they love, not with sorrow, but with tenderness. They hope those people are sleeping now, unaware of the fear whispered about them. They hope tomorrow brings them peace, regardless of what tomorrow brings here. A strange calm rises in their chest, not resignation, but clarity. They realize something quietly profound, that their questions were never a rebellion against the world. They were simply a way of loving it more deeply. To question something is to care enough not to accept it blindly. To wonder
is to be alive. Maybe that was their true crime. They lived with their eyes open in a world that often prefers the comfort of closed lids. They breathe out slowly, letting truth settle like dust on the floor. They whisper again, softer than before. If I am wrong, let me learn. If I am right, let me not fear it. In the moonlit stillness, the words feel safe.
The night has deepened now, settling into its quietest hours, the time when even the wind seems to hesitate before moving, when the world feels suspended between what has been and what has not yet come. The figure sits with their knees drawn slightly toward their chest, not in fear, but in contemplation, as though their body is folding around the warmth of a thought they are not ready to let go of. In the stillness, they realize something that brings a soft calm. The world outside has already forgotten the noise of accusations. Only the night remains, and the night is gentle. They lift their gaze toward the narrow window. The moon has shifted, now casting only a faint glow, but it is enough to illuminate the dust drifting lazily through the air. Each speck seems to float with purpose, as if carrying a quiet truth. Everything, even the smallest fragment of the world, finds its own way through darkness. They let out a slow breath. Tonight isn't about endings, they think. It is about understanding. Understanding themselves. Understanding the fear that shaped the world's judgment. Understanding the quiet courage it takes to stay true to one's own questions. For the first time, they wonder if being different was never the burden others made it to be. Perhaps difference is simply the echo of an inner world no one else has walked. They close their eyes again, recalling the books they read by lamplight, the plants they studied in secret, the ideas that bloomed like fragile flowers in the corners of their mind. They remember nights sitting alone by a stream, watching reflections ripple beneath the stars, feeling the universe open and expand with every breath. Those memories do not fade. They grow brighter now, as though reminding them that their life has always been more than the single story whispered about them. They rest their palms on the ground once more, feeling the cold stone that anchors them, not to fear, but to presence. They take comfort in the fact that no matter what tomorrow holds, tonight belongs entirely to them. The quiet is theirs. The moonlight is theirs. Their thoughts, untouched, unjudged, are theirs. A soft sound echoes from somewhere far down the corridor. Perhaps the sigh of an old door shifting in its hinges. It doesn't disturb them. Instead, it reminds them that nothing in this world stands perfectly still. Not stone, not metal, not belief, not fear. Everything changes, slowly, patiently,
like water carving its path through time. They think about the people who came before them, those who asked questions long before the world was ready to hear them. Many of them were forgotten. Many of them were misunderstood. And yet, because of them, the world eventually grew wider. They smile at the thought that maybe their curiosity too will someday become a tiny thread in the great tapestry of understanding. Not celebrated, not recorded, just present. A quiet contribution to the slow unfolding of truth. They lean their head back against the wall and whisper into the dimness, "I am not afraid to be unremembered. I am only afraid of not having lived honestly." The words settle into the air like a final breath of clarity. They feel no anger now, no regret. Only a profound sense of alignment, as if every part of who they are has finally taken its rightful place. The night presses closer, warm despite its coldness, and for a moment the figure imagines that the moon itself is keeping watch over them, not judging, not saving, just witnessing. In that silent companionship, they discover the subtle power of acceptance. Acceptance of the unknown. Acceptance of themselves. Acceptance of a world that may never understand them. They curl their fingers loosely around a small pebble on the floor, feeling its weight, its shape, a simple reminder that even the smallest thing can endure centuries. And so, they think, can a question. The cell breathes with them now, a shared rhythm. Dawn is still far away, but the figure does not rush it. They savor the remaining hours, the slow drift of thought, the faint glow of moonlight, the soft hum of existence. Tomorrow will come as it must, but tonight they are at peace. And sometimes peace is the most revolutionary thing a mind can hold.
Night settles over the ancient cemetery like a soft gray blanket, draping the worn stones and crooked markers in a gentle hush. A thin mist curls low along the ground, drifting between the graves as if it remembers the stories buried beneath them. At the edge of this quiet field stands a lone figure, a gravedigger whose name few people know and fewer still bother to remember. They pulled their cloak tighter around their shoulders, not from fear, but from the cold breath of the night. The world often imagines their work to be eerie, ominous, steeped in superstition. But to them, this place is simply quiet. Quiet in a way the living world rarely allows. They step slowly between the stones, their lantern casting a soft circle of golden light that floats beside them. Every now and then they pause, listening, not for spirits or strange whispers, but for the ordinary sounds of night. A distant owl, the rustle of leaves shifting under the weight of dew,
the faint sigh of wind passing through cedar branches. The gravedigger has heard every rumor people tell about their trade. They've heard that touching the tools of this work brings misfortune, that the earth around them is cursed, that spending too much time among the silent dead steals something from a person. But standing here now, lantern warm against their palm, they know those rumors say more about fear than truth. If anything, this place teaches them gentleness, respect, stillness. The gravedigger kneels near a fresh patch of earth, resting their hand lightly on the mound. Earlier that day, they were the only one present when a stranger was laid to rest. A traveler with no family, no procession, no final farewell. The priests had spoken briefly, the wind had carried away their words, and then the living world moved on. Only the digger remained. They were the last witness to a life that might otherwise have vanished without trace. Sometimes that thought weighs on them, not heavily, but honestly. The digger does not consider themselves important, yet they know their work is a bridge between the world of breathing voices and the world of final quiet. They smooth the soil gently, almost lovingly. They do not know the stranger's name, but they whisper a soft wish anyway. That wherever the traveler's road continues, it leads toward warmth. Rising again, they continue their slow walk. They've spent so many nights here that they know the cemetery like the back of their hand. They know which stones tilt slightly, which ones bear carvings worn smooth by centuries of rain, which ones catch the first light of dawn as if waking up before everything else. Strange, they think, how people fear this place, yet it is here that they feel most alive. In the city, people seldom look each other in the eye. Here, the world meets them with honesty. Here, nothing pretends. Mist drifts around their ankles as they move, soft and cool. They lift their lantern a little higher, illuminating a row of older graves. They pause, remembering how many nights they've stood in this very spot, sometimes to rest, sometimes simply to listen to their own breath. Their life has been simple: quiet meals, long nights, steady hands shaping the earth. They were not born into this work. Life simply led them to it. And though many would consider that unfortunate, the digger has found something steady, almost meditative in their role. They do not seek praise, and none is offered. But they know this truth: someone must do this work, and it is better done by someone who understands the tenderness it requires. The lantern flame flickers as a breeze passes, casting dancing shadows across the stones. The digger watches them sway and thinks, not for the first time, that the dead are not frightening. It's the loneliness of the living that unsettles the world, not the quiet of those who have already finished their journey. They continue walking, feeling the earth firm beneath their boots. Another night, another set of unspoken stories settling into the soil. And the digger remains the silent keeper of these small goodbyes.
The mist grows thicker as the night deepens, wrapping the cemetery in a soft veil that blurs the edges of every stone and pathway. To most people, this fog would seem unsettling, too silent, too shapeless, too close to the stories whispered over tavern tables. But to the gravedigger, It feels familiar, almost comforting, like an old friend settling beside them without a word. They lift their lantern and watch how the light scatters gently through the mist, turning the air into a silver haze. Every droplet catches the glow for a brief heartbeat before disappearing again, reminding them of how fragile and fleeting every story in this place once was. They walk slowly, taking care with each step, not because they fear disturbing something sacred, but because they understand the weight of being the last witness to so many quiet endings. Their work teaches them to move with intention, with softness. They pause beside a tall, ancient marker whose inscription has long since faded. Weather has erased the words, but the shape of the stone tells a story of its own. It leans slightly to one side, as if tired from holding memories for so many centuries. The digger places a hand against it, feeling the cold seep through their glove. They wonder who rests beneath it. Someone cherished? Someone feared? Someone ordinary? They've learned that the earth never tells the difference. It receives all the same way, with steady patience. A faint, familiar ache stirs in their chest. It is not sadness exactly, but the gentle weight of knowing that they stand in the space between remembrance and forgetting. Without them, some lives would vanish completely, not out of malice, but simply because the world is busy and memory is fragile. They continue their slow path until they reach a row of newer graves. The earth here is firmer, smoother. They kneel again, brushing away a fallen leaf that has landed on one of the markers. The leaf is damp and soft, and it sticks to their glove for a moment before sliding away. They smile at the simplicity of it. Life, even in its quietest moments, still moves, still shifts, still breathes. People often assume gravediggers think only about endings, but as they sit here, lantern glowing faintly against the pale stones, they feel the truth settle deep in their bones. Their days have taught them more about beginnings than endings. They've seen the way grief reshapes the living, the way love lingers even in silence, the way families hold one another tightly at the edge of loss. Even when no one else remains, even when the ceremony is brief and the world hurries away, the digger sees the imprint of love in the smallest gestures. A ribbon someone left behind, a flower placed without words, a sigh carried by the wind. They gently adjust a crooked stone, setting it straight. It is small, quiet work no one will thank them for, but they do it instinctively, as though honoring a promise they never spoke out loud, a promise to care, even when no one is watching. The mist curls around them once more, soft as wool. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird calls. The sound echoes faintly, then dissolves into the fog. The digger leans back on their heels and exhales, watching their breath mingle with the night air. Their life has never been grand. They own little. They ask for little. But this place, this quiet field of names and lives and silence, has shaped them more gently than people might imagine. Here they've learned that every person, no matter how overlooked, deserves a farewell, a witness, a moment of acknowledgement. Here they've learned the subtle truth that the value of a life isn't measured by the size of the crowd that remembers it, but by the tenderness with which it is returned to the world. They stand again, lantern held close, and look out over the misty expanse. The graves stretch on, but not endlessly. Nothing is endless. Not sorrow, not memory, not night. And yet something in this quiet work feels timeless, as though every step they take softens the world just a little. They take another breath. The night is still deep, but its edges have softened. Somewhere beyond the fog, dawn is already thinking about waking.
So the night drifts toward its quietest hour, the kind of stillness that feels almost suspended, as though time itself has paused to breathe. The gravedigger stops near the center of the cemetery, lantern held low, letting the soft circle of light sway gently at their feet. The mist has thinned now, settling into a faint shimmer over the earth, like the last veil between night and dawn. They stand quietly, not out of duty or habit, but because this is always the moment when something inside them settles, like a distant thought finally finding its place. They listen. The world is hushed, but not empty. There's the faint murmur of leaves brushing against one another, the subtle creak of branches adjusting to the cool air, and beneath it all, a soft hum. The kind of silence that isn't truly silence, but a gathering of every small thing that breathes in the dark. The digger has always felt that this hour belongs to no one and everyone at once. It is the space between worlds, a gentle reminder that life and rest share the same quiet ground. They look out across the field of graves, each one a story they'll never fully know. Some belonged to people who were treasured, others to those forgotten long before they left the world. Yet here, under the moon and mist, every life is equal, every resting place touched by the same night air. They take a slow breath, holding the lantern close as its warmth radiates softly through the metal handle. Many people imagine their work to be lonely, but the gravedigger has learned a subtle truth. Solitude isn't the same as loneliness. In solitude, things become clearer. Thoughts unfurl gently. The heart beats in a quieter rhythm, one that matches the hush of the world around it. And so, they have grown comfortable with these hours, these steps between stones, this quiet companionship with the earth. They pause beside another fresh mound of soil. A small wooden marker stands at its head, simple, unadorned, but earnest. Earlier, when they shaped the mound with careful hands, they found themselves wondering what kind of life had led here. Not in a sorrowful way, but in a curious, human way. They have buried nobles and beggars, travelers and townsfolk, people loved deeply and people barely noticed. And each time they return to the same unspoken understanding that every life, no matter how wide or narrow its path, leaves a weight behind. Not a heavy weight, but a presence, like the echo of a footstep you can't quite hear anymore. They kneel and straighten the small marker. The action is simple, almost invisible, but it feels right, necessary, a kind of kindness that does not need to be seen to be true. They whisper softly, not words of any ritual, but something more instinctive, a wish that the soul who once walked this earth is not burdened by how little the world may have noticed them. Rising again, they begin their slow walk toward the path that leads out of the cemetery. Their steps are steady, and the lantern lights a small but certain path before them. They think about the rumors people whisper, how the cemetery is cursed at night, how spirits wander, how gravediggers must carry shadows on their shoulders. The gravedigger smiles faintly. People fear what they do not understand. They fear quiet because it allows their thoughts to speak too loudly. They fear endings because they remind them that time moves with or without permission. But here, walking through the mist, the gravedigger feels none of that fear. Instead, they feel gratitude. Gratitude for the chance to do work that matters, even if no one sees it. Gratitude for the lessons the night teaches, the patience, the humility, the quiet honor of tending to things the world has set aside. At the gate, they pause and look back once more. The cemetery lies still, touched by the silver glow of the fading moon. It is not haunting, it is not dark, it is simply resting, just like the people within it. They lower the lantern, letting its flame steady itself, and whisper one last thought into the mist. May all who lie here sleep gently. Then they turn toward the waking world, carrying the soft peace of the night with them, because someone must be the last to leave. And tonight, as always, that someone is them.
The island is small. So small that from its highest ridge, you can see the waves folding around its edges, like gentle hands closing over a forgotten keepsake. At night, it feels even smaller. The sky stretches endlessly above, heavy with stars, and the sea murmurs softly against the rocks below, as if telling an ancient secret to no one and everyone at once. A cool wind drifts across the island, carrying the faint scent of salt and wild grass. It moves freely, unbothered by borders or rules, brushing past a solitary figure sitting near the shoreline. This person, once something else, someone else, is now simply the Exile. A title without a name, a story without a page. They pulled their thin cloak tighter around their shoulders, not because the night is harsh, but because the vastness of it presses gently against their chest, reminding them just how far they are from the world that once knew them. They look out toward the dark horizon, where sea and sky meet in a quiet, endless line. Out here, there are no commands, no accusations, no eyes watching, no voices judging. The island is a paradox. Lonely, yes, but also strangely liberating, like a place that has stepped outside the rhythm of time. The Exile has lived here long enough that the island's sounds have woven themselves into their breathing. The crash of distant waves, the flapping wings of seabirds roosting on the cliffs, the whisper of wind threading through scattered shrubs. At first, these sounds felt foreign, almost sharp, but now they have become familiar companions, like soft footfalls in a home no one else ever enters. They stretch their legs, feeling the cool sand shifting beneath them. It's strange to think they once belonged to a place filled with noise and urgency. Streets bustling with merchants, soldiers marching, officials arguing in the open squares. There was a time when their name had weight, whether for praise or for trouble. But here, the island does not care what they once were. It accepts only what they are now, a single human being under an enormous sky. Sometimes they try to recall the exact moment their old life ended. The trial, the misunderstanding, the political tension, or perhaps simply the misfortune of being different at the wrong moment. They remember fragments, but the memory feels far away now, softened by time and waves and the simple routine of survival. The world that exiled them still spins somewhere across the ocean, full of the same noise and the same haste, but its borders no longer hold them. Here, on this quiet island, time stretches differently. Days pass with the slow certainty of tides. Nights unfold like wide, gentle blankets. They rise when the sky softens into pale blue. They gather driftwood, search for berries, patch their shelter, drink from a spring that trickles endlessly down the rocks. Life is small, but steady. Sometimes they laugh quietly at the thought that exile, meant as punishment, has become a peculiar kind of freedom. No one calls their name, but no one curses it either. No one tells them what to do, but no one tells them they cannot. There is no praise, no accusation, no recognition at all. Just space, just breath, just the steady pulse of the sea meeting the shore. Tonight, as the stars shimmer like frost in the sky, the exile lies back on the sand and lets the constellations drift slowly above them. They have begun to know these stars as one might know old friends. The cluster that rises early, the bright one that flickers near the horizon, the long curve of light that marks the seasons. Back in the world across the water, stars were often blocked by rooftops or lantern smoke. But here, nothing stands between them and the sky. The exile closes their eyes, listening to the tide breathe in and out. On this island, they are forgotten, but also unseen, alone, but also unbound. Silence settles over them like a second blanket, soft and familiar. And in that silence, something inside them loosens, a small knot of fear they carried for years. Here, in this place without names, they finally allow themselves to imagine a life not defined by what they lost, but by the quiet they found.
They wake before the sun rises, not because anything demands it, but because the island seems to breathe differently in the early light. There is a moment, just a thin sliver of time, when the sky is neither night nor day, and everything holds still, as if the world is taking its first quiet breath. In those moments, the exile feels the closest to peace. They walk along the narrow footpath that winds from the shore to the inland hill. Dew clings to the grass. The air feels clean, untouched. The island, with all its rough edges and lonely corners, becomes a place softened by near silence. At the top of the hill, The exile pauses, watching the horizon lighten slowly. Some mornings they imagine ships appearing, small silhouettes cutting across the water, bringing news or faces from the life they once knew. But the sea is always empty. Not in a painful way, but in a way that reminds them that this chapter is theirs alone. No visitors, no witnesses, no interruptions. From here, they can see nearly the entire island, the crescent-shaped beach, the cluster of wind-bent shrubs, the rocky tide pools glimmering like small mirrors, and the small shelter they built, a simple structure of driftwood and dried leaves, imperfect, but theirs. They breathe out slowly, letting the cool morning air fill their chest. In the old world, they often rushed to places, rushed to meet expectations, rushed to avoid mistakes, rushed to keep up with demands whispered by society. Here, the only rhythm is their own heartbeat and the sea's soft exhale. They sit on a stone, warmed by the first hints of sunlight, and let their thoughts wander, not to regrets, but to moments they had forgotten. The sound of their mother's laugh, the weight of a sibling's hand on their shoulder, the way the market smelled on festival mornings. For years, those memories felt sharp. Now they drift more gently, like petals carried by a stream. The exile takes a small piece of driftwood and begins to carve absent lines with a smooth stone. They don't carve symbols or names, just shapes, spirals, waves, patterns that mimic the island itself. It becomes a ritual, something steady and grounding. While working, they speak softly to themselves, not in full sentences, but in whispers carried by habit. Words like still, breathe, and wait pass through their lips, barely audible over the rustling wind. They sometimes wonder if anyone in the world beyond the island remembers them. Perhaps someone does. A childhood friend, a neighbor, a fellow apprentice. Or perhaps they have already faded from memory, replaced by new stories, new people, new concerns. Surprisingly, the thought does not hurt as much as it once did. Being forgotten feels less like an erasure and more like a quiet kind of release. Near midday, the sun casts warm streaks across the island, and the exile decides to check the tide pools. They crouch beside the shallow water, watching tiny fish flicker like silver sparks. Small crabs move sideways beneath stones, disappearing the moment a shadow passes overhead. They touch the water. It's cool, refreshing, grounding. Sometimes they speak to the creatures, not expecting an answer, but simply enjoying the freedom of saying words without fear of judgment. "You're lucky," they murmur to a tiny fish darting in circles. "The world is small for you, but maybe it feels just right." They smile softly, because in some ways they are like that fish, living in a place that is small but steady, sheltered from storms of human ambition. As evening approaches, the sky blushes with pale orange and soft violet. The exile gathers driftwood for the night's small fire. They don't light it for warmth, they light it for company. A flicker of light to greet the stars, a reminder that even on an island of exile, they can create something gentle. As they sit beside the quiet flame, listening to its soft crackle and the ocean's steady breath, the exile feels the island's truth settle into them, that while they may have been cast out,
they have found a place where they can hear themselves without interruption, where silence is not punishment, but a companion, and where the simple act of watching waves can feel like reclaiming a life piece by piece. They look up at the first stars beginning to shimmer. The night deepens. The air cools. And they whisper a thought they rarely voice. Maybe this is not the end of my story. Maybe it's the pause I needed.
Night settles on the island, not all at once, but gently, like a long breath being exhaled. First, the ocean turns a deeper shade of blue. Then the shadows stretch across the sand. And finally, the stars appear, one by one, as if the sky is remembering where each of them belongs. The exile sits beside their small fire, listening to the waves roll in steady, unhurried pulses. They have grown to recognize each sound, the soft hiss of retreating foam, the hollow thump of a wave that breaks against the rocks, and the faint rustle of wind slipping through the low shrubs. On the mainland, these sounds were lost beneath the noise of crowded streets and daily demands. Here they feel like old companions, returning each night to keep them company. The fire flickers, casting soft amber light on their hands. Those hands once carried tools, books, or messages, whatever their old life had required. Now they carry only simple tasks, gathering driftwood, catching small fish, mending the thatch on their roof. The exile sometimes wonders whether this simplicity is a punishment or a strange kind of refuge. The world they came from had boundaries drawn by other people, rules, hierarchies, expectations whispered into every action. On this island, the only boundaries are the shoreline and the horizon, and even those feel less like limits and more like gentle reminders to stay present. As the night deepens, the exile leans back on the sand and closes their eyes. They picture the world beyond the sea, cities glowing with lantern light, markets filled with voices, temples ringing with chimes. In their mind, these scenes drift like clouds, familiar yet far enough away to feel dreamlike. They imagine what the city might be saying about them, if anything at all. Some exiles are remembered with anger, some with pity, and some not remembered at all. Perhaps that anonymity is its own strange freedom, to no longer be defined by a title, a mistake, a rumor, or a role in someone else's story. On this island, they have become simply themselves, quiet, thoughtful, unhurried, a human being reduced not to less, but to something more honest. Sometimes, as they lie beneath the stars, memories surface without warning. Not dramatic ones, small ones. A neighbor waving from across the street. A warm cup placed into their hands on a winter morning. A sibling's quiet humming while working in the garden. These memories are not painful. They arrive softly, like visitors stopping by before continuing their journey. The exile whispers gentle thanks for each one. Toward midnight, the wind shifts, carrying the salty scent of open water.
They sense that the tide is rising. The rhythm of the ocean changes slightly, becoming more insistent, as if the sea is reminding them that nothing, solitude, exile, even silence, lasts forever. They sit up, watching the horizon. The moon hangs low, its reflection stretching across the water like a path they could almost walk. They know it is an illusion, yet something about it feels reassuring. A reminder that even in exile, the world still offers beauty freely, without permission or judgment. The fire beside them burns lower. They nudge the embers gently with a branch, watching sparks rise and disappear into the night. Those sparks remind them of names they once heard spoken in the marketplace, whispered in council chambers, called out during roll calls. Names that shaped identities, names that carried expectations, names that have not been spoken here in months, perhaps years. Their own name feels distant now, like a word said too many times long ago and then forgotten. And yet the absence of it brings no fear. Instead, it brings a lightness, as if shedding a cloak that had grown heavy over time. The exile stands and walks toward the water. The sand is cool beneath their feet. The tide curls around their ankles, cold but comforting. They look up at the stars, wondering if anyone else anywhere in the world is looking at the same sky and thinking of them. If not, that too is all right. They breathe in deeply, filling their lungs with night air. Then they whisper a quiet truth meant only for themselves. Even forgotten souls leave footprints. The waves slide over their feet again, smoothing the sand. And for a moment, the exile feels something close to belonging, not to a nation, not to a city, but to the world itself. The night continues, gentle and unbroken. The island breathes, the sea sighs, and the exile, unnamed and unseen, remains awake, not because they are waiting for rescue, but because they have learned to find meaning in the soft, unmarked hours that most of the world will never witness.
When the city finally falls silent, long after the marketplaces close and the last footsteps fade beyond the old stone archways, a different kind of world begins to breathe. It is a world that does not belong to kings or scholars or heroes. It belongs to the unseen, the unnamed, the ones history rarely bothers to look at. The city sleeps, wrapped in darkness like a tired traveler gathering their cloak around their shoulders. Torches sputter in distant alleys, their flames shrinking into thin points of gold. The rooftops rest beneath a sky full of drifting stars. And in this soft hour, an hour when stories prefer to whisper instead of speak, the traces of those forgotten souls rise gently, as if the night itself remembers them. If you listen closely, you can feel them moving through the quiet, not as ghosts, but as memories carried by the stones they once walked on. A faint echo of a woman's footsteps on a wet street, a soft breath from someone who once lived in chains, now free in the silence. A trembling sigh from a child who once waited for morning without knowing who would hold their hand. You might hear the rhythm of tools against earth, the echo of a gravedigger working by lantern light, unnoticed but essential, or the distant hum of a man who once questioned the world too boldly and spent his last evening wondering if truth was worth the cost. And somewhere, carried gently by the wind, the faintest ripple from an island far from the mainland, a place where an exile once gazed at the stars and tried to remember their own name. These voices don't come to demand anything. They don't ask for apologies or recognition or justice. They simply drift through the night as reminders that the world has always been built not just by the celebrated few, but by countless lives living quietly at the edges. Lives stitched together with exhaustion, small hopes, private fears, and a fragile courage of surviving another day. When the city sleeps, the weight of judgment disappears, the harshness of daylight softens, and the stories of those who never found a place in the records, those whose names were never carved into marble, become clear for a moment, like reflections on still water. Maybe you can picture her, the woman who walked down the lantern-lit street in the first chapter. You can almost see her shadow gliding along the wall, more tired than guilty, more human than any title given to her. And further away, in a hidden cellar, you might sense the quiet presence of someone who spent their life serving others, bound not by iron, but by expectations too heavy for any one person to carry. Their breath is calm now. No one is calling for them anymore. There is a gentleness in that thought. Near the gates of the old city, beyond the torches and the guarded walls, you might imagine a small fire burning beside a group of people who once lived apart from everyone else, not because they wished to, but because fear and misunderstanding pushed them out. Yet here in this hour, their pain has softened into something like a distant cooling ember. And the children, those tiny figures who once slept on temple steps or beneath market awnings, seem to rest now, wrapped not in blankets, but in the memory that they existed, that they had nights of hunger, but also moments of laughter that no historian ever wrote down. Even the exile on the remote island, watching waves erase footprints on the sand, feels close in this soft darkness. The city cannot see them, but the night can. The world forgets, but the air remembers. And you, listening in this quiet moment, become a witness to them all. Slowly, as your breath settles, you begin to realize a simple truth that history often overlooks. The forgotten are never truly gone. They linger in the fabric of the world, in every stone path, every crumbling wall, every patch of wind-worn earth. Their lives may not have decorated scrolls or statues, but they shaped the nights, the streets, and the very rhythm of the cities that outlived them. And as the city sleeps, they return, not loudly, not painfully,
but in soft ripples of presence, in whispers that curl like smoke, in memories that drift like dust illuminated by the moonlight. Stay here with them for a moment. Feel the gentleness in their stories. Let the world quiet itself around you. Let your breathing grow slow. The night is wide, and there is space enough for every forgotten life to rest, including yours.
There is a moment in every night when the world feels weightless, when even the oldest buildings seem to lift slightly, relieved of the burden of daylight. In that floating stillness, the lives of the forgotten drift closer, not to haunt, but to share space with the quiet inside your own mind. Imagine the city from above. The rooftops are dark, the alleyways faint threads of silver, the courtyards resting like empty bowls beneath the sky. And somewhere between those unmoving shapes lies a map of every life that once passed through, whether they were welcomed or pushed aside. The night gathers these stories gently, like a parent collecting toys left scattered after a long day. It does not judge which stories are worthy. The night simply gathers. And in that gathering, the lives that once felt isolated begin to touch one another, forming a tapestry more complex than any record kept by kings. Maybe you can feel it, the way their stories blend into the darkness around you. A soft, slow merging. The woman who once walked the dim street, the person who worked in the shadows, the child who learned to sleep without lullabies, the healer who questioned too boldly, the one who dug resting places for strangers, the exile who spoke only to the wind. They were never meant to meet in life, but in memory and in nightfall, they stand closer than they ever realized. Their breath seems to pass through the same air, their hopes dissolving into the same darkness, their quiet resilience echoing in the same silence. In this shared space, something becomes clear. Being forgotten does not mean being erased. Even the faintest footprint presses into the earth for longer than anyone expects. A single sigh can remain suspended in the air long after the person who released it is gone. The world remembers in ways humans do not. The stones remember pressure. The walls remember touch. The wind remembers voices. The night remembers everything. And as you lie here, letting your breath lengthen, letting your thoughts soften, you become part of that remembering. You enter the same quiet corridor where every overlooked life passes, unhurried, unashamed. Feel how the stories settle around you. Not heavy, not sad, but calm, like dust falling in a sunbeam. The city sleeps, and the boundaries between past and present loosen. You can almost sense these unseen figures sitting down beside you, not to speak, but simply to share the same quiet space. There is comfort in that. Comfort in knowing that no one is truly alone when the night is deep enough. Somewhere in the distance, a faint breeze glides along the old city walls, carrying with it traces of laughter that was never written down, tears that no historian bothered to note, and courage that never received applause. It all moves together now, drifting like a slow tide back toward the heart of the sleeping city. And with each breath you take, your own story begins to blend with theirs, not because you are forgotten, but because every human life, no matter how bright or hidden,
rests in the same vast night. You do not need to imagine their faces. You do not need to know their names. The night holds those details for you. It holds them gently, the way it holds your quiet breathing now. And as your body grows heavier, sinking deeper into rest, the night continues weaving all these lives together: the celebrated, the overlooked, the lost, the remembered. Every life becomes a single thread. Every breath becomes part of the same fabric. And slowly, softly, the city exhales, and you exhale with it. Your thoughts drift the way their stories drift. Your heartbeat steadies to the rhythm of the quiet they once knew. Rest comes not as an escape, but as a homecoming, a return to something soft, ancient, and shared by all who have ever lived in the shadows of a city that eventually, inevitably, falls asleep.
There comes a point deep in the night when even time seems to slow, as if the universe itself has grown tired and is inviting everything, every memory, every breath, every wandering thought to rest. In that softness, the world that once felt divided begins to merge. The streets that separated people in life now lie connected beneath the same blanket of darkness. And within that merging, the forgotten find their quiet place, not as shadows, but as threads woven gently into the fabric of the sleeping city. Listen to the silence now. It is not empty. It carries echoes softened by distance and time. The faint impression of a footstep on stone, the hush of someone who once cried softly so no one would hear, the careful breath of someone who hoped for one more day. These sounds are not loud, yet they belong to the foundation of every city that still stands. They are the quiet architecture beneath the visible architecture. They are what remain when the rest of the world looks away. As the night deepens, the forgotten gather, not in form, not in body, but in presence. They drift like warm currents of air rising from the stones. They settle like dust illuminated by moonlight. They whisper without words, reminding the sleeping city and you that life has always been larger than the stories written down. And you begin to feel something shift in your chest, something gentle and ancient, the way tide pulls sand or wind bends grass. It is the awareness that every human life, even the ones erased from history, leaves behind a quiet glow. Not a blaze, not a monument, just a soft glow, enough to warm the night from the inside. Imagine the city as it is now, still, calm, breathing slowly. Every building holds a memory. Every alley holds a sigh. Every worn stone has been touched by hands no one remembers the names of. Hands that worked, hands that trembled, hands that hoped. And in this late hour, the city finally listens to them. The world finally listens to them. And you, lying here, letting your breath become slower, deeper, are listening too. Their presence does not ask you to feel sorrow. It invites you to feel connected, to understand that your life also flows into this same invisible river, that even your quietest moments, the ones no one sees, the ones you think will disappear, sink gently into the world and stay there, held by the night the same way these forgotten lives are held.
Slowly, the night folds around you. The distance between past and present softens into a thin line. You might imagine the forgotten sitting just beyond the edge of your vision, close enough to sense, but not close enough to disturb. They are resting too, and maybe that is the truest ending for their stories. Not a triumph, not a tragedy, but rest. Rest after being misunderstood. Rest after being unseen. Rest after moving through a world that often asked too much from them and gave back too little. Now imagine your breath joining theirs, a long, slow exhale into the quiet. Feel your body becoming heavier, as though the night is gently laying a hand on your shoulder. Feel your thoughts dissolving into something soft, like sand falling through fingertips. In this moment, you share something with all those forgotten souls: the right to sleep, the right to release, the right to simply exist without having to prove anything to anyone. And as your eyelids grow heavier, the night offers you one last whisper, the same whisper it has carried for centuries. Perhaps history does not remember them by name, but every stone, every wall, every road remembers their footsteps. Let that whisper settle within you. Let it cradle you towards sleep. You do not need to hold anything now. You do not need to stay awake. The night remembers, the world remembers, and you can rest.